another amazing Monday morning here from the studios of IATV. Welcoming you to the newspaper review segment of AM Cafe, coming to you from the studios of IATV. My name is Folashade Ogurinde, and I have with me in the studio my esteemed colleague Faith. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. And good morning, viewers. It's so nice to have you join us in the Lagos studios of IATV. It's on the newspaper review segment of AM Cafe. It's a cool Monday morning in the city of Lagos, and Lagos is joining Nigerians to celebrate children. It's Children's Day.
Yeah, happy Children's Day.
Yeah, happy Children's Day. And this morning I have with me the Guardian newspaper, the Nation newspaper, as well as some parts of the Punch newspaper.
And I have with me this morning the Punch newspaper, the Vanguard, and the Nigerian Tribune. So let's go straight to the Punch newspaper. Our headline story here says NUT bemoans worsening state of public primary schools on the Children's Day celebration, obviously, and the story is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. A story here says minimum wage will be paid from April 18th, says Ngige, and the story is on page 26 of the Punch newspaper. Insecurity, YCE urges Yoruba to be vigilant. That story is on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. Just beside the masthead, many fed killed in fresh Jos violence. The story is on page 16 of the Punch newspaper. 5 states set to adopt housing law. The story is on page 52 of the Punch newspaper. Just below there are pictures here just below the headline story. There are pictures here of primary schools in very poor state, and you can see the children really struggling to learn in a conducive environment, which is quite sad. Just below the picture I have a story here. National Assembly management ask lawmakers to quit offices on Tuesday. That story is on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. Another story here, residents blame LCDA chairman as Ogun begins demolition of 300 buildings, and that story is on page 4 and 5. Another story here, don't blame JAMB if best students misses choice varsity, says JAMB board, and that story is on page 10. If you're curious to know why the JAMB is saying this, you can find that story on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. So Faith, what story do you have in the Guardian?
On the Guardian have Buhari under fire over nation's oil sector woes, and the riders to that story, stakeholders want NNPC commercialized. Another rider, $5.94 billion oil gas exported in 1 year. As President Muhammadu Buhari, who doubles as the petroleum minister, completes his first term in office, stakeholders in the oil and gas sector have insisted that his performance in the sector is far below expectation. You may want to have details of that story on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Digital switchover may delay till 2021. We have the riders NBC seeks $30 billion from federal government, eyes South Korea for decoders. Alright, another story here. PDP seeks probe into Aisha's allegation of graft in SIP. That's on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Hope, disappointment, and renewed hope. That's an editorial on page 16 of the Guardian newspaper. You may want to see who has hope on who, and the disappointment, what disappointment and the renewal of hope is all about. You check that story up on page 16 of the Guardian newspaper. Domesticating, enforcing global plan to protect Nigerian children from abuse. We have that as a special report from page 52 of the Guardian newspaper. Folashade, that story is kind of catching my attention because we have so many reports of children being abused, children being molested, and it's just going to be good if plans to domesticate laws that will protect children from abuse will be put down in Nigeria and sustained in the country to help to fast track fight or war against child
abuse. And off the top of my head, and I'm thinking of two solutions. First, government has to make sure that we have stringent laws that would, make people who have this tendency to abuse children, stop doing that. And it's not just, we have different kinds of abuses. We have domestic abuse, emotional, and even sexual abuse.
Yes.
And also to ensure that people who have these issues, especially when it comes to sexually molesting a child, have access to mental health, programs that would help, give them access to, mental health, stimulations in order to ensure that, they are being, talked to by officials such as a psychologist, because it's sometimes it's beyond exactly. So, and also those who maltreat children. We've had cases of, a madam, so to say, burning a child of 8 years old or 12 years old, and even cases where children who are underage are sent into cities to serve as domestic help.
I just think
it's really, really sad.
Nigerians should start to protect the child, make a move to protect the child today, especially as the country celebrates Children's Day today. All right, that's all on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. What more do we have on the Vanguard?
Okay, the Vanguard newspaper, Southwest under siege, Yoruba elders, Agbekoya tell federal government, saying people may resort to self-defense. That story is on page 17. You want to check out the story on the Vanguard newspaper. I have a story here. Missing chartered accountant Adewura found dead in canal. The story is on page 7 of the Vanguard newspaper. Just above the masthead, sluggish economy weighs down corporate performance. The story is inside the Vanguard newspaper. Nigeria getting poorer, feeling hopeless and helpless. Cardinal Onayeko. The story is on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper. New minimum wage. No governor can say it won't pay, says federal government. The story is on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper.
The Parry Fund, Parry Club Fund has been released.
Exactly. So I'm sure that's what the federal government is saying. Hey, you have no excuse to pay. And Faith, there's a picture here that's quite sad, man. A traffic chaos still on Oshodi Apapa Expressway as trucks and tankers refuse to vacate the road despite presidential directive, which elapsed yesterday. Now you can see this photograph. You can see trucks. You can see the dilapidated road. Sincerely, this is the first time I'm actually seeing it this way, and I'm like, how did it get to this level?
Now imagine you seeing this for the first time and consider the trauma this has been putting people who ply that route on. I mean, I don't understand why. Well, let's hope.
There's a culture in Nigeria where we allow things get to, the worst level before intervention. Exactly. How can the Nigerian government, whether locally or state or federal, allow this road to be in this state? And we call ourselves the giant of Africa. It's quite sad. And the Vanguard is reporting that despite the president's ultimatum and the directive that all trucks must be cleared off the road, these trucks are still there.
Well, okay. now that this has been reported, we hope that this menace will be.
Okay, let's move on to other stories. Let's move on to other stories. Children's Day celebration. The newspaper hosted schools, and that story is on page 44. Apapa gridlock, truck drivers defy Buhari's directive. You can find the story on page 10, and also female LATMA officer crushed to death enforcing directive. That story is also on page 10 of the Vanguard newspaper. I have a story here. Two more. Youth undertakes first brain surgery using drilling machine. Wow. That story is on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper. Boko Haram kills 25 soldiers in Borno ambush. It's not true, says Army. That story is on page 8. And Faith, over and over, we see reports and the army coming to say those reports are untrue. Now, there's a place for verification in the press, but however, it's quite confusing sometimes when we hear one report and the army is saying another. Is it based on security issues, or is it, what exactly do you think is happening?
We really can't handpick what exactly is happening. We can't say who is wrong and what is wrong, but then we just hope everything will be right someday.
Yeah, the last story here, the front page of the Vanguard. Buhari may block NAS final push to oust Mago as reps pass bill to make IAG head EFCC. That story is on page 9 of the Vanguard news. But let's move straight to the Nation.
Onoyekon prays against bad advisors for Buhari. And we have a quote here: the greatest of God's gift to us, like itself, is in danger all over our land. Gunmen and our women unknown have been sowing death, destruction, misery almost everywhere. Property, well-being, harmony and peace are endangered by generalized insecurity. Before God, this is the truth and not political propaganda mounted to discredit the government. The nation must be mobilized to join hands to face the disaster looming over all of us. I'm sure that story is going to interest many Nigerians. You can check that more, or you can check more of it on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. We have a rider to that story. Oshimbajo says bright future at inauguration service. I take 2 paragraphs with a piece of advice that Nigerians should remain hopeful with a bright future. Prayers for the country. The May 29th inauguration activities began yesterday in Abuja. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo delivered the message of hope, saying that the future of our nation is bright. That story is continued, like I said, on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. Ngige states, don't delay minimum wage. That story is on page 7 of the Nation newspaper. Senate House rush to amend EFCC Act. That's on page 7 of the Nation newspaper. $40,000 scholarship for UTME Best. That's on page 7 of the Nation newspaper. Well, this looks like a consolation prize for this young chap.
How much did you call it again?
$40,000.
40,000. I thought I had 40,000 naira. Okay, $40,000. I think that's a good one.
And it was in the news that the guy lost, or is going to lose admission this year.
Yeah, because it's underage. Yeah, I think for Unilag, the age is 16 years. I think even for most federal and state schools, but he's just 15 years old, so he just might need. And I think I'm going to advise his parents to, enroll him into computer or any other training in loves, and don't let that fire burn down. I'm sure he's going to even perform better next year.
All right, another story here: Air Force strikes bandits in Zamfara. That's on page 42 of the Nation newspaper. NNPC boasts $490.03 million crude oil exports. That's on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. Flying Eagles target win over US. Another story here: Abuad has regained education's last glory, says Obi of Onitsha. That's on page 8 of the Nation newspaper. Emefiele, CBN has no multiple exchange rates. That story, you have some part of it on the front page of the Nation, and it's continued on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. More stories on Nigerian Tribune.
Okay, the Nigerian Tribune today is reporting that Yoruba leaders back Obasanjo over Fulanization agenda. The writer says urge Yoruba in Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, Ondo, Ekiti, Osun, Kwara, Kogi to engage in self-defense against kidnappings, killings and arson. That story is on page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune. Now above the masthead is a story here that says NNPC recorded crude oil gas turnover of 490.03 million naira in February. That story is on page 10 of the Nigerian Tribune. 4 fair dead, killed, houses burnt in just violence. That story is on page 34. Southwest under Fulani headsmen siege. PDP raises alarm. That story is on page 4 of the Nigerian Tribune. A story here: Nigerians must be mobilized to face looming disaster. Oneyekon wins, things will be better. Osinbajo. That story is on page 8, and contradictions, like I said earlier. Oneyekon is saying Nigerians must be mobilized to face looming disaster, and our vice president is saying things will be better. We'll leave it to the Nigerians to decide. Now, another story here: Aisha Buhari stands on 500 billion naira social investment fund, vindicates, says PDP. That story is on page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune. Supreme Court judgment is Allah's will. That story is on page 6, and that statement was made by Zamfara Governor. Apapa gridlock, task force moves articulated vehicles off Lagos roads. Truck kills LASTMA official on duty. That story is on page 37 of the Nigerian Tribune. I have a story here above the masthead. Minimum wage. Governors have started owing workers from April 18th. That statement was made by the federal government, and you can find the story on page 36 of the Nigerian Tribune. Buhari needs nothing governors over insecurity today, likely to sign 2019 budget. That story is on page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune. And this Fulanization agenda, Obasanjo last week exactly made that statement that there's a Fulanization agenda. And you remember during I think the 2015, the last election between Jonathan and Buhari, there was a statement then. The rumor passing around that it was an Islamization agenda. Now we're seeing a Fulanization agenda.
That is coming.
And we need to see the shift from Islamization to Fulanization. And I hope things will be clearer. And I think this statement was made when the president announced that there will be a
Fulani
radio exactly for in order to make Fulanis to ensure that
to fight the killings
exactly
in the country. Well, I have some inside stories on the Nation newspaper. Trailer kills last mile official on duty. We have that story. A last mile official was killed while trying to ensure that the directive of the presidency was adhered to on a Papa road. Well, it's on record that 30 last mile officials brutalized since January. This is really touching, and one would just expect that these directives will be followed and the Apapa gridlock will be fought once and for all. I think that will be all on newspaper review segments this morning.
All right, many thanks for joining us on today's episode of Newspaper Review from the stables of IATV. Many thanks for joining us. I am Folashade Ogurinde.
And I'm Faith Agbetia. Enjoy your week.
Good morning.